What up, YouTube? This is another episode of Ballroom Boxing. Thank you for joining me on another episode of Ballroom Boxing for all of those who are listening. So, I wanted to talk today about father and son relationships in boxing. Now, I wanted to say this because I noticed this. And I'm bringing this up because of the latest controversy with Sean Porter and Kenny Porter and certain members of the new media movement on YouTube. A lot of people in the LDBC, or maybe I shouldn't say a lot, but a few brothers in the LDBC are basically caught on Kenny and Sean Porter's helmet. You know, one about the controversial ducking of Errol Spence by the Porters, and also Kenny and Sean's relationship. Some people feel as though Kenny Porter has too much say-so in his son's life. And I'm gonna say this as a father, as a man with two sons. I don't, other than trying to live vicariously through my sons, I don't see having a vested interest in their lives and what they do and helping them make money so that they can be successful and financially secure is me putting too much into my son's life. I mean, how can you honestly be guilty of too much care for your child? You know? I mean, and there are tons of father and son teams in boxing. Floyd started out as a father and son team with his pops, you know, until he went to prison. And then it was him and his uncle. It was a family thing. Danny Garcia and his dad, Angel Garcia. Now, if there should be any protest, I believe, about over any son's relationship with their father, I think Danny Garcia and Angel Garcia is a good one to complain about. And simply because Angel Garcia makes it a point to constantly have controversy anytime there's a press conference or anytime there's a face-to-face with Danny Garcia and another fighter. And seemingly with black fighters, he seems to go all out, making a clown and a spectacle out of himself. You understand what I'm saying? And that should be some shit that's not tolerated in boxing. You understand? That type of controversial, always putting your fucking foot in the mouth should have Angel Garcia in more of a hot seat, in my opinion. I mean, you had Robert Guerrero and Ruben Guerrero. You know, Ruben Guerrero was loud and outspoken. I mean, we have tons and tons. I mean, you can go back in the past. Diego Corrales and his dad was in his corner. I mean, boxing is a family sport. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a sport that your family gets involved in. I don't see Kenny Porter's relationship with his son and helping his son manage his career being a bad thing. Because let's look at the contrast now. And I don't know why. In fact, I just thought of an answer as I was about to say I don't know why. Why Adrian Broner always comes up with me contrasting, because Adrian Broner is the antithesis of what I think a good boxer should be. I mean, so far is his maturity, his discipline, his focus. You understand what I'm saying? His mind state, his perspective, his perception on things, the way he actually goes about his routine. Like is everything Adrian Broner does is wrong. Other than marketing himself, everything he does is wrong in boxing. He hasn't beaten any top contender or any top challenger. He has only beaten middle of the road B-level fighters or C-level fighters. Adrian Broner is no longer an A-level fighter. Now, as gifted of an athlete as Adrian Broner is, and I don't think any of us can deny the fact that Adrian Broner is a very gifted, talented athlete. The dude is very athletic. I got to give him that. When he was at 135, he shined like the sun. You understand what I'm saying? The way he beat the shit out of that kid, Antonio DeMarco, that's a classic fight. He beat the brakes off this kid. You understand? This is the dude that knocked John Molina out in the first round. Great fight. What if Adrian Broner's dad was as dedicated to his son's career, or was even the same level of parent that Kenny Porter is to his son? I mean, the discipline isn't there. Obviously, I'm not going to point out the obvious, but there is a lack of discipline there. it shows in Adrian Broner. You understand what I'm saying? There are a lot of things that are lacking, like maturity, for one thing. You understand? Constantly having this I don't give a fuck attitude. Acting as though you're the toughest motherfucker on the planet. You can do and say whatever you want. You don't have to be, responsible for the things you say, how you represent yourself, or how you even represent your family and your children. You understand? The constant buffoonery, the constant on social media talking about killing yourself. Kenny Porter is in Sean's life. He kept Sean away from the streets. He kept Sean out of trouble. He kept Sean out of this, that, and the third. Sean has been an athlete all his life. And Kenny Porter is right when he points out, I've made my son a millionaire multiple times over. What have you done for yours? I don't understand the criticism with this man being a good father to his son. People feel as though, what is Sean Porter doing for his son that Eddie Hearn isn't quote unquote doing for Anthony Joshua, other than the lying and all the bullshit? But nobody is biting Al Heyman's head off for being a good advisor to his fighters. Nobody's biting his head off. Nobody. Abner Mares left, 126. Leo Santa Cruz left 126. I'm not sure if Leo Santa Cruz is managed by Al Heyman. I'm not 100% sure. But I know Abner Mares is managed by Al Heyman. And he left a division to avoid a fight with Guillermo Rigondeaux while he was under the advisement of Al Heyman. That's a move that a lot of us fight fans did not like and do not appreciate to this day. Now, hold that in contrast with the Errol Spence and Sean Porter thing. Do I believe Sean Porter is leery of fighting Errol Spence? Fuck yeah. Yeah. Do I think he's afraid of Errol Spence? Maybe not afraid of him, maybe not afraid of him like being afraid of the man himself, but maybe he's afraid to lose to him. You understand what I'm saying? And it could quite possibly be true that he's afraid of him. I don't know. Sean Porter's not a big guy. But Sean Porter was, fighting at fucking middleweight. You know what I'm saying? Fighting, super middleweights, lightweight, light heavyweights. I don't think the dude has a whole lot of fear in him for other fighters. I saw an amateur fight with him and Danny Jacobs and shit. Sean Porter fights at middleweight or welterweight. Danny Jacobs is a middleweight who could possibly go up to 168. There's a huge size difference there. It's a 2 weight class difference there between them at this point in time. But Sean Porter was dropped from the rankings of the IBF after he lost to Kell Brook, which I thought was kind of fucked up. Maybe they have a grudge with the IBF and they're not overly anxious to actually be in the IBF rankings. Isn't that kind of the same thing Canelo was doing with the WBC? I didn't really hear Canelo getting a whole lot of shit for not wanting to fight for the WBC, because the WBC talked shit about Canelo. The IBF dropped Sean Porter from their rankings. So maybe they have a grudge against them. I haven't heard anybody actually point that out, that they could have a grudge with the IBF and they're not pressed to fight for the IBF, because they just literally just dropped. Sean Porter lost the belt and they dropped him from the rankings. They didn't, drop him down a couple of spaces. They literally ejected his ass off of their fucking roster. I thought that was fucked up. And if they have a grudge against that sanctioning body because of that fucked up move, I'm not mad at them for that. I'm not mad at them if they're not barking at the door trying to get the IBF to fucking allow them a fight so they can get in the rankings so they can fight for Errol Spence's title. I'm not upset with that at all. I'm not upset with that. You understand? I think the fight between Sean Porter and Danny Garcia is a great fight. And if Sean Porter wins the fight, you know what I'm saying? Errol Spence is the mandatory for whoever wins that fight. Knowing that both of these guys will be in this position once they fought each other, I honestly don't think that either one of these dudes are trying to really duck Errol Spence. Afraid of him or fearful? Sure, that could be. And could they have been trying to duck him in the beginning? Sure. Danny Garcia said shit like, he wasn't really checking for Errol Spence because he didn't have a title. If he win a belt, do more at 147, then come holler at him. Errol Spence won the title, beat the shit out of some pretty known B-level fighters, Danny Garcia never had Errol Spence's name in his mouth, you know. But that is what it is. They don't have a fucking choice after this fight now. So it's no point in even talking about the contention with that. Like, they don't have any choice. Errol Spence is next up to bat after they fight. So there you have it. But yeah, man, I don't know, man. I don't really know what to say about that shit, you know. Other than what I've just said, I think that if they had a grudge with the IBF, that could explain some shit. Not that I'm making excuses for them, but if they had a grudge with the IBF, and I believe that they rightfully should have had a grudge with them for being dropped from the rankings the way that they were, just for losing a fight, a decision, mind you. Sean didn't get stopped. It was a decision. It was a decision. But anyway, I'm not gonna be mad at any man for taking care of his son, helping his son achieve the level of a professional fighter, you know what I'm saying, and still be relevant in the boxing world today. You understand what I'm saying? I mean, again, think about it. Look, Shawn Porter's constantly working. Adrian Broner gets a lot of work, but Adrian Broner is now seen as a middle-of-the-road dude that if you got enough grit, you can beat his ass. Adrian Broner is now the guy that other guys are making their fucking names off of, man. You understand what I'm saying? Other dudes are making their names off of him. His lack of discipline. I would think his lack of everything. Okay, I'm going to ask this question. Where would Adrian Broner be right now if his dad was as dedicated to him as Shawn Porter's dad is to him? Where would Adrian Broner be if he had a father to teach him the lessons that Shawn Porter's dad taught him? The discipline, the structure. You know what I'm saying? Where would Adrian Broner be if he had the mentality of Shawn Porter, being humble? You understand what I'm saying? Staying dedicated to the sport, not going off on wild-ass tangents, acting like a clown. I mean, seriously. I mean, because I don't see Kenny Porter in the ring brushing his fucking son's hair. I see him in the ring instructing his son on how to fight. Yeah, Shawn Porter's style leaves a lot to be desired. His style isn't necessarily a favorite of mine, but I like him. And I've seen Shawn Porter actually box, and he can actually box. He can really box. Does he do it throughout an entire fight? Not necessarily. But, again, I pose that question. If Adrian Broner had the structure that Kenny Porter created for his son, where would Adrian Broner be right now in his boxing career? And these dudes are from the same state. Can you really knock Kenny Porter from keeping his son from turning into an Adrian Broner? Because if you're from the hood, it's easy to turn into that. And I'm going to pose the question again for the third time, and then I'm going to end the video. Where would Adrian Broner be if he had the same level of structure and discipline? The same type of father or man or masculine role model in his life that didn't allow him to act like a clown, who wouldn't put up with anything less, who instilled in his son discipline, responsibility, respect. Where would Adrian Broner be if he had that in his life?